Olivia Bennet stood before the full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the Four Seasons Boston, her ivory Vera Wang gown cascading around her like liquid moonlight. Outside the panoramic windows, the Charles River glittered in the June sunshine, a perfect backdrop for what should have been the happiest day of her life. "You look absolutely breathtaking," her mother whispered, carefully adjusting the cathedral-length veil adorned with hand-sewn pearls. Olivia forced a smile, though strange. Unease had settled in her stomach since dawn. Something felt off. Perhaps it was just wedding jitters after all. Marrying investment banker James Whitman, after 3 whirlwind years together, was a dream come true. Their story was picture perfect. Meeting at a charity gala, weekends in the Hamptons, the proposal on a private yacht off Santorini. At 32, Olivia had found everything she wanted. The photographer needs a few more shots before the ceremony. Her maid of honor, Sophia, announced, slipping her phone into the pocket of her blush silk dress. "I'll tell him you need 10 minutes." As the bridal party filed out, Olivia sank onto the velvet chaise lounge, savoring a rare moment alone. The suite was silent, except for the faint strains of the string quartet warming up downstairs. She closed her eyes, willing herself to stay present, to memorize every sensation of this momentous day. The buzz of her phone shattered the silence. A text from an unknown number. "You deserve to know the truth about James before you say, 'I do.' Check his cloud backup." Password: Cambridge 2019. Olivia's hands trembled. Spam? A cruel prank? But the password, it was the name of their first apartment together, and the year they'd moved in. No stranger would know that dot with a racing heart. She opened her laptop and navigated to James's cloud drive. They shared passwords. There were no secrets between them, or so she thought. The password worked. Inside was a folder labeled simply A. What she found made her blood run cold. Years of intimate exchanges between James and someone named Alexandra. Photos, plans, financial documents for a property in Aspen, and messages as recent as yesterday. Just one more day. Then we'll figure out how to tell her. The prenup ensures she can't touch the family assets. The room spun as reality crashed down. James had been leading a double life with another woman, apparently. His true love while positioning Olivia for a marriage he already planned to dissolve. The prenup she'd signed, thinking it was standard for his wealthy family, was actually his insurance policy. A soft knock at the door. 15 minutes, Miss Bennet," called the wedding coordinator. Olivia stared at her reflection. The $15,000. Gown suddenly feeling like a costume. 300 guests waited below. James stood at the altar, thinking his plan was perfect. Her mascara-stained tears left black rivers down her cheeks as a cold, clear certainty replaced her shock. This wasn't the end of her story, Dot. It was just the beginning. "Olivia, we need to, oh my God, what happened?" Sophia rushed to her side, taking in the smeared makeup and the open laptop. "He's been lying, all of it." Olivia's voice was eerily calm. As she turned the screen toward her oldest friend, Sophia's gasp echoed in the luxurious suite as she scrolled through the damning evidence. "That bastard. I'll kill him myself." "No," Olivia stood, wiping her tears. "I have a better idea." As Sophia helped repair her makeup, Olivia explained her plan. Minutes later, they were joined by Ryan Carter, James's best man and childhood friend. Ryan's face darkened as they showed him the messages. "I suspected something," he admitted. There were calls he'd take in private. Weekends he claimed were work trips. Ryan ran a hand through his dark hair, his blue eyes troubled. "I should have said something." "You can make it right now," Olivia said, meeting his gaze with newfound determination. The wedding planner's voice crackled over the intercom. "Places, everyone. Processional begins in 5 minutes." Downstairs, The ballroom was a vision of white orchids and crystal chandeliers. Boston's elite filled the gilt chairs, programs in hand. At the altar, James straightened his Tom Ford tuxedo, the picture of confidence. When Wagner's bridal chorus began, guests rose in anticipation. Olivia appeared at the entrance, radiant in her gown, her face serene behind her veil. James smiled, oblivious to the storm about to break. Step by deliberate step, she proceeded down the aisle, each movement bringing her closer to the moment of reckoning. When she reached the altar, the officiant began the ceremony with practiced solemnity. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today, ... Olivia's father squeezed her hand before taking his seat, pride evident in his eyes. If only he knew what was coming. When the time came for vows, James spoke first, his words a masterpiece of deception about love and fidelity. The guests sighed appreciatively, moved by promises he never intended to keep. Then it was Olivia's turn. She took a deep breath and lifted her veil. I had beautiful vows prepared, she began, her voice clear and steady. Words about trust and honesty, and forever. But instead, I'll share something else. She turned to face the guests. I discovered today that James has been living a double life with another woman for years. A collective gasp rippled through the room. James's face drained of color. I found messages, photos, and plans for their future together. A future he intended to begin as soon as he secured my family's connections through marriage. She paused, watching him squirm. The truth is, I'm not the woman he loves. I'm just a stepping stone. Olivia, this is ridiculous, James hissed, reaching for her arm. You're embarrassing yourself. Ryan stepped forward, placing himself between them. It's true, he confirmed, looking directly at James's parents. I've seen the evidence. So, rather than say, I do to a lie, Olivia continued, her voice gaining strength, I'm choosing myself today. With those words, she slipped off her 5-carat diamond engagement ring and placed it in James's palm, closing his fingers around it with gentle finality. Then, head high, she turned and walked back down the aisle alone, leading behind a stunned crowd, a humiliated groom, and the weight of expectations she'd carried for too long. The sun was setting over the Boston skyline when Olivia, still in her wedding dress, found herself at the hotel's rooftop bar, the bartender having heard whispers of the ceremony's dramatic conclusion slid a glass of Macallan 25 across the marble counter without a word. Is this seat taken? Olivia looked up to find Ryan standing there, bow tie undone, his expression a mix of concern and admiration. It's been quite a day, she said, gesturing to the empty stool. Shouldn't you be dealing with the fallout downstairs? James left. His parents are handling the guests. Ryan ordered a drink. You know, in 10 years of friendship, I've never seen him that shocked. You were magnificent. A small smile tugged at her lips. I surprised myself, too. The $75,000 reception. That would never happen was being dismantled in the grand ballroom below. The 5-tier cake, the champagne towers, the band flown in from New York, all part of the elaborate facade she'd walked away from. Your anonymous tipster, Ryan said quietly. It was Alexandra, wasn't it? Olivia nodded. Apparently, James. Told her he'd end things with me after securing my family's investment in his fund. She got cold feet about hurting another woman. Her phone buzzed incessantly, friends, family, even reporters who'd somehow gotten her number. The story was spreading like wildfire through Boston's elite circles. By morning, it would be everywhere. My father called, she said, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. He's pulled his investment from James's firm. Said no man who builds his success on lies deserves Bennett Capital. A comfortable silence settled between them as the city lights began to twinkle. For the first time that day, Olivia felt herself breathe fully. "What happens now?" Ryan asked. Before she could answer, the elevator doors opened, and Sophia burst onto the rooftop, carrying a garment bag and Olivia's passport. "I've packed an overnight bag," she announced. "Your flight to Paris leaves in 3 hours." Olivia blinked in surprise. "Paris? You still have that empty apartment your grandmother left you, right? The one near Montmartre?" Sophia placed the passport in Olivia's hand. "You need space. Time away from the gossip and the pity looks." The impromptu escape plan was exactly what Olivia needed. Chance to rewrite her story far from the wreckage of today. In the luxury hotel bathroom, she changed from her wedding gown into a simple black dress. As she zipped the Vera Wang into its garment bag, she felt a surprising lack of attachment to the beautiful dress that had cost more than most people's cars. When she emerged, Ryan was waiting, car keys in hand. "I'll drive you to the airport." The night air was cool as they slipped out through the service entrance, avoiding the paparazzi already gathering at the hotel's main doors. In the quiet of his Range Rover, Olivia watched her city slide by, each street light illuminating a different memory of her life with James. "He's been calling you," she noted, seeing Ryan's phone light up repeatedly on the console. "Let him," Ryan said simply. At the international terminal, he pulled her suitcase from the trunk and handed her a small package. "What's this?" "Open it." "On the plane," he said with a gentle smile. "Something to remind you that walking away was courage, not failure." Impulsively, she hugged him, inhaling the faint scent of his cologne. "Thank you for standing up for me today." As she turned to enter the terminal, he called after her. "Olivia, the right person won't make you choose between love and self-respect." With those words lingering in her mind, she stepped through the sliding doors toward her unplanned future, leaving behind the wedding that wasn't and the life that could have trapped. Paris embraced Olivia with indifferent charm, a city too magnificent to care about one woman's broken engagement. Her grandmother's apartment in the 18th arrondissement was small but elegant, with herringbone floors and a tiny balcony overlooking a hidden courtyard. For 6 weeks, she disappeared into anonymity. No social media, no calls except to her parents and Sophia. The package from Ryan, a vintage compass with an inscription that read, "Not all who wander are lost," sat on her nightstand, a daily reminder of possibilities. On a rain-soaked Tuesday, nursing an espresso at a corner cafe, Olivia opened her laptop for the first time since Boston. The email count was staggering. Among the sympathetic messages and gossip requests were 3 from James, each more desperate than the last, ending with outright pleas for forgiveness. She deleted them without reading fully. But one email caught her attention from Elise Laurent, editor-in-chief of Verite, France's most respected investigative journal. "Your story reached me. Not the wedding drama, but what came before. I understand you exposed significant irregularities in pharmaceutical trials during your research fellowship. We're investigating similar patterns in European markets. Would you consider consulting?" Olivia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Before James, before getting swept into his world of galas and status, she'd been a promising bioethics researcher. Her whistleblowing on a rush drug trial had made waves in academic circles, but was quickly buried by the company's legal team. Someone had remembered. Someone had found her. The next morning, she stepped into Verite's offices near Place de la République, wearing a simple Chanel suit she'd found in her grandmother's closet. Elise, a striking woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair, greeted her with direct intensity. "The pharmaceutical industry has perfected the art of hiding unfavorable research," Elise explained, spreading documents across the conference table. "But patterns emerge when you know where to look." For the first time since discovering James's betrayal, Olivia felt her mind fully engaged with something beyond her personal drama. This was the work she'd abandoned when James suggested her career was admirable but unnecessary, given his income. "I can help," she said, surprising herself with her certainty. "But I'll need access to the trial databases." "Already arranged," Elise smiled. "Welcome to the team." Days blurred into weeks as Olivia threw herself into the investigation. Her apartment became a war room of sticky notes and research papers. The story they were uncovering was significant, potentially affecting thousands of patients. On a rare evening off, sitting at a cafe near Sacré-Cœur, her phone lit up with a text from Ryan. "Saw your byline on the preliminary report. Impressive work. Paris suits you." She smiled, remembering his steadfast support on what should have been her wedding day. They'd kept in sporadic contact, nothing romantic, just brief messages that somehow always arrived when she needed encouragement. "How did you find the article?" She texted back. "I've been following your work since you left. Hope that's not weird." As she considered her response, another message appeared. "I'm in London for a conference next week. Paris isn't far by train." Olivia felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in months' anticipation. Not for a future mapped out by someone else, but for a moment of genuine connection with someone who had seen her at her worst and still believed in her strength. "I know a good cafe near Gare du Nord," she replied. Putting down her phone, she gazed out at the Paris skyline, golden in the setting sun. The woman who had fled Boston in a wedding dress was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had turned devastation into determination. And for the first time since that fateful morning when her world imploded, Olivia Bennett was genuinely grateful for the truth that had set her free. Her, 1 year to the day after her almost wedding. Olivia stood in the offices of Verret as the team gathered around a table covered with champagne flutes. The magazine's explosive expose on pharmaceutical trial manipulation had just won the prestigious Prix Clarté for investigative journalism, and Olivia's name appeared second on the byline. "To truth," Elise toasted, "and to the woman who helped uncover it." The investigation had expanded beyond their initial scope, revealing a pattern of data suppression across multiple companies. 3 medications had been pulled from the market. A congressional hearing was scheduled in Washington. As the celebration continued, Olivia slipped away to the balcony, gazing across the Parisian rooftops, now as familiar to her as Boston's skyline once was. Her phone buzzed with a notification. An email from James. She'd heard he'd finally married Alexandra in a small ceremony in Connecticut. The financial empire he'd been building had faltered after several investors, including Olivia's father, withdrew their support following the wedding. Scandal. The message was brief, almost humble, acknowledging his wrongs without asking for forgiveness, simply expressing hope that she had found happiness. For the first time, reading his words brought no pain, just a distant recognition of a lesson learned. A text message followed. "Proud of you. Dinner still on for tonight?" Ryan had moved to Paris 3 months ago, accepting a position with an international law firm specializing in corporate ethics. Their friendship had evolved slowly, cautiously, into something deeper, built on mutual respect and shared values. Rather than the intoxicating whirlwind she'd mistaken for love with James. "There you are." Elise joined her on the balcony. "Your mother called the office. Apparently, your story has gone viral again." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Elise handed her a tablet open to a social media post with millions of views. Someone had pieced together Olivia's journey from jilted bride to award-winning journalist, creating a narrative of triumph that was inspiring women worldwide. "You've become something of a symbol," Elise said with a smile. "The woman who walked away from a fraudulent future and built an authentic one instead." Later that evening, dressed in a simple midnight blue gown, Olivia entered the intimate restaurant where Ryan waited. Le Jules Verne, perched in the Eiffel Tower, offered a view of the city that still took her breath away. To your success, Ryan raised his glass. Though I'm not sure how I feel about dating a social media icon. She laughed, the sound free and genuine. Trust me, it wasn't the plan. The best things rarely are, he replied, reaching across the table to take her hand. Speaking of unplanned, ... He slid a small velvet box toward her. Olivia's heart quickened as she opened it to find not a ring, but a key. My lease is up next month, he said simply. And I thought maybe it's time we stopped pretending we don't want to wake up together every morning. Tears pricked her eyes, not from overwhelming emotion, but from the profound relief of being offered a choice rather than a foregone conclusion. Is that a yes? He asked, his blue eyes hopeful but patient. It's a yes, she whispered, closing her fingers around the key. But on one condition. Name it. We split the rent equally, she said with a smile. I've built my own life. I want to share it with you, not be absorbed into yours. Ryan's face broke into a wide grin. I wouldn't have it any other way. As they clinked glasses, Olivia glanced out at the glittering city that had sheltered her rebirth. Exactly 1 year ago, she had walked away from what seemed like everything, only to discover it had been nothing of substance at all. The woman who had fled a wedding in tears now understood that the greatest love story wasn't about finding the perfect partner. It was about becoming the person you were meant to be, and then, perhaps, finding someone who treasured that person exactly as she was. The catastrophe that had seemed like an ending had merely been the first page of a much better story.